My name is Gabriel Melendez, Director of the Center for Regional Studies at the University of New Mexico. I would like to welcome you all to one of our programs in the La Kanoa Legacy Series, a partnership between the National Hispanic Cultural Center and the Center for Regional Studies. The Center for Regional Studies is dedicated to the creation and dissemination of knowledge about New Mexico, the Greater Southwest as a region, and its connections to northern Mexico, Latin America, and the Iberian Peninsula. The La Kanoa Legacy Series takes its inspiration from the word canoa. A canoa is a sloop-rigged fishing boat, common in the Amazon, but in New Mexico it is the name of some common everyday tools, a simple canal or flute, or the wooden paddle a baker uses to move loaves of bread in and out of a hot oven. Always La Kanoa receives and transports people and resources. And we want these talks to transport us and move the conversation between presenters and audience members back and forth in rich dialogue. We also want our talks to bring practical, useful information to community members, researchers, and others interested in the history, culture, politics, sociology, and religious experiences of our region.
I'm so pleased to be here, and it's lovely to see so many familiar faces. And in researching the history of our council, I'm really impressed with us, so I hope you will be too. What can happen when a small group of determined women get together to form a council of and for other women? Remember the times, 1988. We were well removed from the Movimiento Chicano. We were in the midst of the second wave of the women's movement. Judith Espinosa, Patricia Madrid, Millie Santillanes, Mary Archuleta, and Ofelia Reinalde, and other local women led a group of committed women to form the Hispanic Women's Council. They wanted to increase the participation of Hispanic women in high-level decision-making positions and to create a strong network so we could help each other. After a year, they developed our mission statement and the articles of incorporation that established our nonprofit council. The inaugural event was the HWC Summit held in October of 1989, which featured national speakers. The workshops included titles such as Taking Risks, Communication Styles, and Learning to Lobby. So you see, right from the beginning, we were serious. The HWC is a council that serves our community of women. We are a community of all ages and economic status. We are women who lift each other up as we help each other realize our potential. We are women who enjoy our deep friendships with each other, and we make newcomers welcome, and they become our friends and comadres. We sponsor a fundraiser, the Masquerade Ball, that raises money for our scholarships. We sponsor the meet and greet that introduces our scholarship recipients to our members. We are privileged to hear their stories of struggle and of triumph. In May, we celebrate our mothers and daughters and the important women in our lives. At Christmas, we gather to share food and sing the old songs of celebration and reverence. And we honor special women of accomplishment when we bestow the HWC Primeras Award to trailblazers in their fields. The Estrella Brillante Award recognizes the HWC member who has given extraordinary service to the organization. In 1990, we instituted Mitote Hours, after-work networking sessions that are also fun. The title evolved to Mitote Power Hour to reflect our belief that information is power. These gatherings allow us to kick off our shoes and visit with friends, old and new, and we network. We have sponsored many educational conferences since that first one in 1989, often in collaboration with other women's organizations such as Mana del Norte, Las Mujeres, and National LULAC Women. We have put on many conferences such as Maximizing Women's Potential, Conexión Latina, a National Hispanic Leadership Training Conference, Taking Care of Business Training Conference, which sponsored 10 seminars about starting and developing your own business. We have sponsored conferences and workshops that cover the gamut from leadership training to tax law to marketing your own business. We have sponsored educational workshops and events including Women in Investing, Curanderismo, Running for Public Office, Negotiating Your Worth, Exploring a Legacy of Spanish Dance in New Mexico, and Traditional Foods. More recently, we have sponsored events like Understanding the Legacy of African Americans in New Mexico, led by Mr. and Mrs. Powdrell. That was outstanding. Exploring the art and craft of Northern New Mexico families, a docent-led tour of our world-class Mundos de Mestizaje, the fresco made by Federico Vigil, and an exploration of the magnificent art show Visions of the Hispanic World, led by Andrew Connor, the director of the Albuquerque Museum. We have sponsored a wealth of guest speakers, both national and local. The national ones first, Dr. Antonia Castañeda, when she was professor of history at the University of California at Santa Barbara. Carolyn Curiel, a senior speechwriter and special assistant to President Bill Clinton, and later ambassador to Belize. Margarita Colmenares, the corporate liaison director for the U.S. Department of Education. Patsy Valdez, the Los Angeles artist who was showing her work here at the NHCC during a national exhibition tour. Congresswomen Linda Sanchez and Loretta Sanchez spoke at the HWC 20th Anniversary Gala. In 2016, HWC hosted the Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, an event attended by 600 guests. Our local speakers have included Teresa Leger, when she was a White House fellow and who is now running for Congress from the 3rd Congressional District, Judith Cordova, the superintendent of Petroglyph National Monument, Ana Pacheco, editor of La Herencia, Teresa Trujeque, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer to the Mayor of Albuquerque. Jacqueline Baca of Bueno Foods spoke on food, family, and tradition. Ambassador Marilucy Jaramillo gave a lecture about her life as the first Latina ambassador in the United States. And at another event, she signed her first book, Madam Ambassador, the Shoemaker's Daughter. Angie Torres talked to us about her life story, and we viewed the film Stones for Ibarra. Dr. Helen Lucero gave us a private viewing of the exhibit Arte Latino at the Museum of Fine Arts of New Mexico. Dr. Rowena Rivera presented her research manuscript, The Villanueva Tapestry. Dr. Veronica Garcia, the New Mexico State Secretary of Education, spoke to us, as did Rebecca Avicia, then the Executive Director of the NHCC. In 1992, we wrote our first book, Nuestras Mujeres, in collaboration with some UNM faculty. From 1992 to 1999, HWC hosted Cambio on KOAT TV, a half-hour program which we aired once a quarter, interviewing women in our community on a variety of topics. In 1994, led by Teresa Leger Fernandez, HWC sponsored the New Mexico premiere of the video Las Primeras, featuring the lives and accomplishments of pioneer Latina lawyers throughout the United States. And I need to get that for my class. 4 women from New Mexico were included: Patricia Madrid, Betty Camunes, Petra Maes, and Graciela Olivares. In 1999, we instituted the HWC Primeras, an award to honor women trailblazers. Recipients are named in the Mujeres Valerosas book on page 2. More women followed, including Dr. Viola Flores, Dr. Veronica Garcia, Gloria Tristani, Sonia Chavez, Dr. Catherine Winograd, and Dr. Garnett Stokes. La Estrella Brillante Award was created in 2002 to recognize a member who has given extraordinary service to HWC. Among those recipients, to name but a few, are Vangie Samora, Rocky Martinez, who's back over there, Marilee Foreman, who's sitting in green, Edna Lopez, Dr. Laila Flores Dueñas, and Carol Vigil. Under the leadership of Dr. Flores Dueñas in 2007, the HWC Scholarship and Mentorship Program was established. Since that time, can you hear me? Since that time, we have awarded $117,000 in 260 scholarships to women attending UNM and CNM. The mentoring component is especially helpful to our students, many of whom are first generation in their family to attend college. Peña Femenina, in partnership with Women in Creativity, premiered in 2008 and showcased talented local women performers. The event was lively for 8 years. And in 2013, under the leadership of Dr. Viola Flores, we established the annual Masquerade Charity Ball to raise money for our important scholarship program. I have not been able to list every name, event, or accomplishment associated with the HWC in the past 31 years, and we're in our 32nd year now, because I've run out of time. I will close with perhaps our most important achievement. In 2009, under the leadership of Rose Diaz, our archives were established at the New Mexico State Records Center and Archives in Santa Fe. Dr. Diaz talked to the state archivist to gauge interest in having our papers. Then she arranged a tour of the archives for the members. Dr. Diaz helped us through the process, and we even attended the hearing where the board reviews potential new archives and observed their approval establishment of the HWC archives. Vangie Samora wrote the application and takes charge of submission of documents and keeps the communication going with the archives. We are women who know that it is important to document who we are and what we do. And we are women who know that in documenting what we have done, our contemporaries and generations to come will know who we are and what we have done. We are trailblazers who know how important it is to leave a very clear trail. Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
So my name is Vangie Samora, and it is so great to see you here today and to see so many of the women who were featured in the book here today. In fact, if you would raise your hands so that when you buy your book or if you brought your book and you want some signatures, hi, Helen. But that really was an amazing overview of HWC. I feel a little exhausted, but I also feel very, very proud of what we've achieved in 31 years. I joined HWC in 1989, which was its second year. And as Carmen said, did you say I was HWC Vice President? She's the president. I don't know if she said that.
No, I had it in my notes, and then, you get standing up here and you say, oh, do I have to say my name? No, because Patricia did. But I'm the current president of HWC, and I've been so honored this past year to be of service to this tremendous organization. And Vangie Samora is our vice president.
Thank you so much, Carmen. I'm also the editor of the book Mujeres Valerosas, which was published.
Could you speak a little louder?
Yeah, in fact, let me do this. Is this turned on already?
Yes. We just put it by you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My sister always says you don't speak loudly enough. Here, let me do this. How's that?
Nice.
Much better? And then I can relax too. Okay, so I want to introduce or acknowledge the other two editors, Rocky Martinez. Rocky, where are you? Are you really back in that corner? Back there, there's Rocky. And the third editor is Teresa Cardenas, who could not be here today because she's caring for her mother, Elizabeth Cardenas, who is also in the book. And so she sends her regards, and she's very sorry she can't be here. But the three of us formed what we called the book committee, and we worked on this project for five years. and we got to be, we became very good friends over those 5 years. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about why we published this book. First of all, as you well know, there are very few things out there that document the Hispanic woman experience. And at the time, there really was very little. Today, there's a little bit more, but we still need a lot more. And then secondly, we had done a previous book, Nuestras Mujeres, had been published. And the sale of that book provided some seed money for another project. So we had that going for us. And also, the fact that we had that track record meant that we could do some fundraising for this project. And indeed, that was very helpful, and we did very well. And most importantly, though, I think, well, no, I know this, is the stories themselves. I mentioned that I joined in 1989. And as I got to know the women of HWC, in conversation, I would hear these little snippets of things that they had done or experiences that they had had. And sometimes it occurred to me, these are really important little pieces of information, but in general, these women are modest. So it seemed to me that there was going to be plenty there to explore, and indeed, we found that their stories were just treasures. The initial approach that we took was to include a short bio, a personal essay, and a photograph. But as we got into the project and started interviewing the people to write their essays, it occurred to us that this was an opportunity to collect some oral histories. So that's what we did. We collected almost 50 oral histories. And then the next question was, what do we do with them? Where do we keep them? Where do we store them? And that's what led us to creating the archives at the State Archives. And so we're really glad we did that. It's probably, I would venture to say, maybe somebody can prove me wrong, and if they can, great. I think it's probably the largest collection of oral histories of Hispanic women anywhere in the country. So now what I'd like to do is to read 3 essays, and the women that I chose to feature are women that, or I chose them for a couple of reasons. One is they're some of my favorites. But also, the theme that runs through their essay repeated itself in the book, and so I thought that would, and we can talk about that after I read the essays about what those themes are. I'm going to start with Mela Ledger. Don't cry, people.
Oh, you're too late.
So Mela was my vecina. And she was a good friend. She was kind and generous, and she was wicked smart and funny. And she was really humble. And it was that humility that that's why I understand now that I didn't even know this story until I started interviewing her. So let me read her essay. At Loretta Heights College in Denver, Colorado, the counselor tried to enroll Mela Ledger Lucero in some education courses. Me, a teacher? Never, was her reaction. Her mother was a teacher, so Mela knew how hard she worked and therefore wanted no part of it. Instead, she majored in sociology with the intention of becoming a social worker. She was detoured, however, by love and marriage and found herself living in El Rito, New Mexico. Teachers were hard to find in this remote area, so she was convinced by the school superintendent to earn a teaching certificate. Realizing she was headed down the road that she had worked so hard to avoid, she cried for the first 2.5 months of teaching. But then something miraculous happened. Her students began to read. Mela was hooked. This crucial turning point led to a 34-year career in education, during which time she left an indelible mark on bilingual education in New Mexico. When Mela learned of the Miami Linguistic Readers, a pilot reading program designed to teach English reading to Spanish-speaking children, she jumped at it. This program was the precursor of bilingual education in New Mexico. Bilingual education was not readily accepted in the early 1970s, so Mela traveled to various school districts to meet with parents and convince them that bilingual education was a good thing for their children. The momentum grew, and in collaboration with state leaders in bilingual education, she developed the guidelines that were incorporated into state law, which now funds bilingual education. Who knew, right? She wrote those. Mela didn't stop there, however. To address the scarcity of trained teachers, Mela directed a teacher training center in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and trained the first cadre of bilingual education teachers, many of whom became bilingual directors in their districts. She then set out to work on meeting the need for educational materials for our New Mexican children by collaborating with the Spanish Curriculum Development Center in Miami. The Miami Center had already developed materials designed for 3 Spanish-speaking populations, Mexican American, Puerto Rican, and Cuban, and made these materials available to teachers willing to use them and provide feedback on their suitability for local children. Mela took charge of this project, and teaching materials appropriate to New Mexican students eventually became available. Bilingual education became a passion for the reluctant teacher. Much of the success of bilingual education in New Mexico can be traced directly to her efforts. Isn't that remarkable? And we didn't know that about Mela. The other thing that I wanted to mention is why it matters to document women's stories is after this book was published, she was nominated to be acknowledged as part of the New Mexico Historic Women Marker Initiative. Her story is now on a roadside marker. It's located at, let's see, what does it say here? I thought it's, Highway 84 at Delia, if anybody knows that area. I went to the dedication, and it seemed to me that I drove for a long, long time. And you know what, as I recall, I videotaped that whole event, so I'm sure that her family has that tape somewhere. So it matters that we document these stories, and I guess the point for me in this story is that women need to learn to tell their story. And if they're not telling it, we need to draw that story out and make it known, because she obviously made a huge contribution in New Mexico. And so I think it's important that we know that. Okay. The second woman I'm featuring is Frances Garcia. Frances was a beautiful, elegant woman who was always impeccably dressed. She carried herself with confidence, and at the same time there was a shyness about her. I was drawn to her, and what I learned about her is she was a self-made businesswoman. So now let me read her story. She's up here, by the way. Frances is one of the women who's left us. Frances M. Garcia is a self-made businesswoman. She started working at her brother's company with very little knowledge about running a business, much less the wholesale distribution business. She was determined to learn, however, and eventually was involved in every aspect. When the opportunity arose to become the owner and manager of the company, she was ready and nurtured the company over the next 35 years to what is now a landmark in Albuquerque's business community. And just before this, I did a search of the business, and it is no longer there. Frances married young so that she could join her husband on his travels. He was career military, which allowed them to live in many locations, including Japan. When she returned to New Mexico, Frances's brother invited her to work at his business, Ballet Distributing, in an entry-level position. As she had not finished high school and had no work experience outside the home, this was a welcome invitation, and the work seemed reasonable. She soon found that her work assignments were not challenging enough and wanted to know more and do more. So she learned by observing others carefully and then applying that knowledge to her work. As she took on more responsibilities, she became less mystified by the world of business. Common sense resolved most problems, and she already had the other 2 necessary skills, the abilities to communicate and negotiate with people. Her most challenging obstacle at the time was overcoming the attitude that women were not supposed to be involved in business. Initially, Frances worked exclusively with men, from the clients wanting Valley Distributing to handle their product, to the bankers, to the delivery men. Eventually, prejudices eased due to her professionalism and skill. The opportunity finally came for her to take the lead, and she became president and CEO of Valley Distributing in 1969. Times have changed over the years, and old challenges have been replaced by new ones. The competition of the mega retailers in town, in particular. She has been at it so long and has built so many bridges that her long-standing accounts with local clients have stayed constant. Frances invited women to move forward with their dream to go into business. Quote, "You can succeed if you are determined enough. Work at it diligently and doors will open for you. It will require long work days and constant attentiveness to details, but the rewards are many, not the least of which is independence." So I featured her because there are a lot of women in this book who are self-made. Okay, and the final woman is Carmen Chavez. Carmen is friendly, outgoing, and in love with life. She is always smiling and spreads goodwill just by being present. Her essay carries the message of holding on to your dream, no matter how long it takes to make it come true. I absolutely love this story. Carmen R. Chavez started working on her bachelor's degree at the age of 61 and finished her master's degree at the age of 71. She was undeterred by those who remarked, "What are you going to do with a degree at your age?" She was clear about her reasons. She was going back to school because she loved learning and for the self-satisfaction of completing something she had yearned for all her life. It was not about pleasing anyone else or building a resume. It was about her self-respect and self-worth. Carmen was born in Clovis, New Mexico, and spent her early years in Texas, where her father worked on the railroad. When she was a teenager, the family moved to Albuquerque and settled in Varelas. She loved her new community because, like her own parents, many of the Vareleños were immigrants from Mexico who had come to work at the railroad shops. For the first time, Carmen felt comfortable in her skin. She excelled in school, and when she graduated from Albuquerque High School in 1942, she received a scholarship to attend college. Unfortunately, her father nixed this idea because, quote, "girls don't need a degree to change diapers." And so she was enlisted to help her other siblings get through school. She did what was expected. Carmen later married, had 3 children, and adopted 2 more. She loved her role as mother and teacher to her children and was actively involved in their school, serving as room mother, den mother, and PTA president. After her children became more self-sufficient, she began working for a local department store where she applied her excellent people skills. Do you know that I actually remember her, that we used to shop at Sears? She also excelled in her management skills and was sales manager in several key departments during her 25-year career. While living somewhat of a charmed life, Carmen felt there was still one thing missing, that college degree of which she had always dreamed. When she retired, the opportunity was staring her in the face. She had the time, the will, and the support of her husband. She chose history as her major and focused on railroad history and its impact on families. She began by dissecting her own family history and widening her research to include entire communities, starting with Varelas. She is gratified that her writings have been published in research journals, but even more so celebrates the self-confidence and self-worth she gained. She now feels fulfilled and valerosa. Isn't that beautiful? So here's the outcome of her research. This is extraordinary. By the way, in the book, there is a little bio on each woman, so you can read, other than the essay, you can read a little bit more about them. She received, let's see, let me just read it to you. Carmen Chavez attended the University of New Mexico and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in magna cum laude and a master's degree in history. The National Endowment for the Humanities funded her research, resulting in a manuscript titled Coming of Age During the War, Reminiscences of an Albuquerque Hispana. It was published in the 1995 issue of the New Mexico Historical Review. And if you haven't read that, it is so worthwhile reading because it's her experience growing up here in Barelas, but she also documents what was going on in the rest of the world and how people moving here were changing everything about this community. And there are beautiful pictures in there of her as a young woman. Another research project, The Stew Pot Theory, A Gourmet's Delight, was published in the UNM Honors Review. So those two publications are out there for people to read about her life experience along with this. But the reason I wanted to include her is because there is a theme in the book with other women of having to give up what they intended to do with their lives so that they could help the rest of their family. That was very common. There was also the theme of, unfortunately, families that did not support them going to college and doing what they wanted to do. So that I thought that was a story really worth telling. I just absolutely love that story. So that's my presentation. I'd like to open it up to a discussion. Turn this into one of our Mitote Power Hours, maybe? So let me just say a little bit of how that title came to be, because I find it rather entertaining. When the HWC was formed, there was talk about this new organization, or maybe it was being promoted at the state legislature, and a senator, who will remain unnamed, dismissed the HWC as a bunch of metoteras. And so when we heard about that, we went, we're just going to take that name and do something with it. So that's why we named it the Mitote Power Hour, because we feel like information, it's not just gossiping. We're exchanging information about things that we're doing, things we're hearing in the community, and how we can help. And information is power, and that's why we call it that. And then it's just a great load of fun, these Mitote Power Hours. So that's all I have. Are there any questions or comments?
Before we have questions and comments, I just want to thank you, Vangie, for your presentation was so lovely, and the stories that you picked were, now there's many, many more in the book, but
Right.
what you picked to represent was very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks so much. Valentin. Valentin was my vecino too.
Anyway, I was wondering about the archives. Are they, paper and recordings?
Yes, both.
And they made a separate section for them?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing that they offered to do, and we gave them, believe it or not, the raw tapes of the video. Oh, yeah. Sorry, sister. Thank goodness you're here, sister. Keep me on track. We gave them the raw tapes, and they committed to transferring them to the next level of technology and the next level of technology. So hopefully whatever's going on out there tech-wise, people will be able to access them. And then other things like our newsletters and things like that are in print form. Mm-hmm. Helen.
About how many of these women have passed on? Do you know?
Right here?
No, I'm talking about in the whole book. Is that it?
That's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is a list of all the women featured in the book, but these are beautiful women. And all the more reason to capture their stories, right? A lot of families were very thankful that we did this because, for instance, when Angie Torres died, this was the only recording that had been made of her life, full life, and they used it at her memorial. Yeah. We didn't capture all of them, but we captured quite a few. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Do you have an advisory committee for organizations or government agencies who want to provide diversity training or anything like that?
An advisory, I'm not sure what that would mean. We have a board.
So if an organization approaches you and wanting speakers on talking about diversity or integrating a program for Latinas or Latinx people in their organization, do you provide any kind of service for that?
Well, we did. I mean, La Kanoa approached us, Ana approached us, and we discussed it in the board. And I think Veronica Sanchez had something to do with it too. And so we discussed, decided what we could provide. Vangie said, I would like you, meaning me, to talk about the history, and she would talk about the actual book. And so we met that challenge, and we do that frequently, not necessarily providing speakers, but people do come to us and want to know what we do or something, and as a board we decide whether we're going to approach it or not, and how we could do it the best we can, and who, not just on the board, but who in the membership might be the right fit for whatever is asked.
Veronica.
My name is Veronica Sanchez. I'm a current member of the Hispanic Women's Council. I served as a past president also, and I have served on the scholarship committee. And so partly in response to your question, one of the things that sets our scholarship apart is the mentorship component. So our scholarships are not always great in money, but they're great in service and mentorship. Each of the students has a mentor on campus who helps them navigate the academic environment. In addition, speaking to your question about providing sort of service in the area of diversity or support, all of our women are available to those students, and at our meet and greet event, many of them make contact and make contact subsequently, so that many have been encouraged or helped along directly by specific women in the group. So it's not, we meet those challenges even though we don't have an advisory committee that sort of is set aside specifically to meet that need. Okay?
Good answer, yes.
And Elsie Sanchez here, because she reminded me, she established a speakers bureau when she was president of HWC. So yeah, so just ask us, and we're bound to have the expertise either on the board or in the membership.
In the membership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
How do you select the students for scholarships? How do they know about it? What's your outreach for?
At this
that?
point, it's word of mouth. But Leila Flores Dueñas, who's on campus, she has ways of getting that word out. Why are you making faces at me?
It's on the website. It's also on the HWC website.
No, she's
That's
asking
posted.
how we, well, yeah, that's another outlet, but to
Yeah.
let the students know, Layla sent it out to her network on campus, and then now it's pretty much word of mouth. But every year around June, the guidelines are published on our website.
Right.
And now the students themselves are bringing in other students and
Yeah, but
Yeah.
students can also apply through the website.
right.
The
yeah.
form, the application forms are
Yes.
furnished
yes,
in the
right.
website, yeah.
Well, and I send the notification out to my network of students, and we publish it in our department, in the CCS department. So there's a web, a network web that goes out. Now, how we select the students, we want students who are in their second year, so that we know that they are committed. If we give a scholarship to a freshman, they're not quite tested yet. And although we do mentor, I'm mentoring a freshman now in hopes that she'll be applying in May or whenever the application is. And then we have given scholarships to women both at CNM and UNM for undergraduate and then through their graduate degree. I mean, we have helped graduate physicians, PhDs. I'm one of the recipients, and I mean, it's a beautiful network of, here, let me help you, let me turn around and help you. And our meet and greet, you need to go to these meet and greet. They're in September, and they are my absolute favorite occurrence. I went to one, and all the students, one by one, will stand up and say a little bit about what they're studying, and they're so nervous, and they're trying to make a good impression, and they've brought their mothers and fathers, and the mothers and fathers they're just beaming. Many of these young women are first gen, and they are so impressive with what they're learning to do. And a couple of years ago, I went, and there was this woman who's a little bit older, and of course I gravitated to her because I was older when I went back for more education. And she talked about how her husband would not permit her to learn English. And her children taught her English, and she said, and thanks to my children and SpongeBob SquarePants, I learned enough English that I could go to school. She eventually divorced him, kicked him out, and was on her way to a master's. I mean, that's the kind of story that you hear, and it's such an uplifting evening of, so that's my favorite.
The other thing that happens at that event is that it links the students with the professional women in HWC. And for instance, if, here's a really good example. One of the graduates that we supported is now has been hired by Valerie Borrego, who is a CPA. She has her CPA business, and she hired this student. But for instance, here's another for instance, Marilucy Jaramillo. These girls, these women, I shouldn't say girls, they're women. They were thrilled to meet a U.S. ambassador. And Marilucy, you all knew her, she's so warm and so receptive that they would all just gather around her. And she would, if they wanted to meet with her one-on-one, she would do that.
She would.
Yeah, she would do that. And that's a real, so it's just wonderful to see the women of HWC connect with these students at that professional level in a personal way. Hello.
My name is Gloria Mirabal, and I really appreciate the relationship that Hispanic Women Council has with Mana del Norte. So that has been very rewarding, I think, for our organization and for this organization. But my question is, are you doing anything in particular with the Dreamers? I know that they don't have a lot of role models, I don't think, as far as moms are still working very hard, the ones that have come here struggling to keep a family afloat. And so just being associated with women like we have here is really very inspirational for them, I think. So are there any plans to do anything in particular with
We're doing it.
Can you tell me
There
about
are
it?
dreamers among our students, quite a few. And in fact, we had at the meet and greet, we have one student who is actually the keynote speaker for that event. And this last time, she's a dreamer. Her story is so compelling. We published her story in our last newsletter. And so if you want to go to our website, you can access all our newsletters on our website and read that story. It's really just wonderful. But yes, we're engaged with dreamers.
The discussion before that made me think of what is your presence in southern New Mexico? NMSU, Silver City, Las Cruces, Alamogordo?
Not too much, except that in the book there is at least one and maybe two women from southern New Mexico. Yeah.
You're mostly concentrated in the north?
Right. Well, we're concentrated in Albuquerque, really. Yeah, this is where this organization was founded. It was all Albuquerque women. We used to have a presence in Santa Fe, and we tried to establish a chapter in Santa Fe, but it was very difficult to keep that going. But we do try to do one event in Santa Fe every year. By the way, HWC sponsors one event a month, pretty much. That's why we have that long list of things that we've done. We stay pretty active.
Yes, my name is Diana Montoya, and I'm with an organization called Las Mujeres. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is that the Hispanic Women's Council always is there to support other Latino women's organizations. We have done events together. We had a coalition of Hispanic women's organizations that honored women who have made significant contributions to our community, and it's been a wonderful friendship, and I'm really happy that I got to be in the book. I wasn't part of the Hispanic Women's Council, but I was part of the Comadres, and that was a true honor for me, as well as some of the other members of Las Mujeres and other women outside of your organization that you chose to recognize and honor, which I think is really appreciated.
I'm so glad to hear that, Diana.
Thank you.
So let me just explain what Diana's talking about. When we were going to publish the book, we asked the membership to nominate women. And they had to be HWC women because we were featuring the women of the organization. But in the course of the nomination process, all these other names kept coming up. And women who were doing really important work in the community. So we decided, you know what, let's do a second section, and then we called them the Comadres. They're listed here. Diana is one. Gloria Mirabal, who spoke earlier, she's with Mana del Norte. In fact, I believe, Diana, you're a co-founder of Las Mujeres, and Gloria, you're a co-founder of Mana del Norte.
And not really, but I attended the first meeting. And
Okay.
I was blown away with these women, just like the women here. I had never been around women with so much power. It changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And Carmen Rodriguez was the founder.
Okay, Carmen, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why we have two sections, because we just felt we couldn't leave those women out. Hi. Anything else? Yes?
I'm a new member. My name is Loretta Sandoval. I'm very proud to just have joined and become a member of the Hispanic Women's Council. I'm curious as to how many scholarships are given every year. How many young women receive scholarships?
I think the average is about between 17 to 20 scholarships a year.
Yeah.
And we have a complete count of how many scholarships we've given, but that doesn't equate to numbers of women because we repeat scholarships. We follow them through. If they're making success, we stay with them.
Through grad school, and
through
however
grad
high
school.
they want to continue their
Right,
education.
exactly.
I also just feel like this lady, I forgot your name, please forgive me, Gloria, to be among, I cannot tell you the high I felt to be among such. I feel so privileged and honored just to be joining the group because the caliber and the character and the integrity of the women in this council blew me away. So I hope that I can be active, and I just know that I felt a welcome and a spirit of comadreship immediately upon my first meeting. It's just nice to be with my sisters and my comadres.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you for
very
this
much.
council.
Thank
We host an annual meeting. We just had our annual meeting. It's annual membership meeting. It's kind of a business meeting. We elect our board members. But we take the opportunity for everybody in the room to have 2 minutes to get up and say whatever they want to say about themselves, a project they're working on. And what we heard over and over again was how isolated women feel in their work, especially. You know the scenario. You show up at a board meeting and you're the only one. And so when they come to this organization, they're amongst many. And I can remember very clearly my first experience. I know what you're talking about because I felt it that day.
I love that you expressed it in that way, because my husband said when I came home from the meeting, I have not seen you so excited and impassioned in a while. So I said, you know, it's just like I have no words for it. I mean, I could cry because it's
Right.
so welcome in my life.
Yeah. No,
So
I know what
thank
you're
you.
saying.
Well, I can understand that. This group is just a wealth of wonderful support, and I mean, they blow me away too. You know, we recently, just very recently, got, with the support of the Hispanic Women's Council and other women's organizations, to rename Bridge Boulevard Avenida Dolores Huerta.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And to quote Dolores Huerta, she says often, in all of the history of the world, his story is told, hers isn't. And I want to thank you all for telling her story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? I think we're done.
Thank you so much.